Okay, well, thank you very much for the invitation to participate in this panel. I mean, I have been given, I think, the most difficult assignment. What is the impact of the financial crisis on the real economy? It's an assignment that involves some forecasting. And as everyone knows, forecasting is something very hard to do, especially if it involves the future. So I'll start by providing some perspective on things. So I think it's important to realize, I mean, this I guess, very well known among macroeconomists, and I'm sure among economists in general, but it's good to remind ourselves that this financial crisis comes at the end of what we could call a golden age for the world economy over the past decade or so. If you look at this, what you see here is the growth rate of GDP in both advanced economies and emerging and developing economies. The aggregate economic activity in industrialized countries has been much more stable than in the past. And you can see this by looking at the periods of recession in the early 90s and in the early 2000s, where the dip in GDP growth was much shallower than in earlier recessions in the mid-70s and early 80s. And that permeates all macro variables. And this is a phenomenon that has come to be known as the Great Moderation. Okay? And for emerging markets and developing economies, it has also been a golden age. Certainly, some of them have been hit by important shocks and have experienced a lot of volatility, but on average, and if you take a sufficient long period of time, the growth rate that those countries have experienced has been really impressive. Okay? Now, as you can see, this goes, the shaded area includes forecasts, that these are forecasts produced by the IMF, and as you can see, there is expectations of a decline in the growth rates in both kinds of economies, much stronger in advanced economies than in emerging and developing economies. Now, what makes this really fascinating, in my opinion, especially when we think about advanced economies, is that this stability, this period of great stability over the past few years has been experienced in spite of very large shocks that have hit the economy. In particular, large increases in the prices of oil and commodities. Increases of a smaller magnitude that were experienced in the 70s are usually seen as being responsible for the very high inflation and the deep recessions of the mid-70s and the late 70s and 80s. Up to now, there were no signs that anything like this was going to happen in advanced economies. Growth, there was some sign of a slowdown, there was some pressure on inflation and so on, but advanced economies were moving along pretty well, and there have been many explanations for that. One of them is that, maybe labor markets are more flexible now, and so wages have been have absorbed the increase in the price of oil better than in the 70s, when there was more indexation and unions had a stronger role in the setting of wages. Also, there has been an improvement in monetary policy, which has led to an anchoring of inflation expectations. Central banks now focus much more on price stability, so inflation expectations have remained, at least until very recently, very stable. So that has obviously also helped to stabilize wages, and that has provided more room for central banks to manage the economy. So the question is, the hard question is, will this golden age come to an end as a result of the financial crisis? And obviously no one, well, certainly it won't be as golden as it has been, but no one knows the extent to which the recession that is certainly looming over us will be a very serious and prolonged recession, or will be a relatively shallow recession like the ones that we have experienced more recently. But so let me just show you, and obviously I don't have the answer to that. So let me just show you some pictures and share some thoughts with you that may hopefully will stimulate some further thoughts from the audience or the other co-panelists. So where do we stand now? I mean, the impact so far has been really limited. If we look at hard data and data on employment and GDP, okay, these are the key macro variables for the U.S. and the euro area. I will restrict myself to those two areas. So GDP growth in the U.S. up to the second quarter of 2008, well, it has kept in the positive side. I mean, there was I think it was the last quarter of 2007, it was essentially zero growth, but the numbers are positive, and growth in the second quarter was higher than growth in the first quarter. Okay, if you look at employment, things have been pretty different. So look at the end of this picture. So this shows the change in absolute numbers, change in employment. Okay, so since the beginning of 2008, employment has declined at the rate of, on average, of 100,000 workers per month. Okay, so obviously it's the sign, a clear sign of the beginning of a recession. You can compare it to the recession in 2001, but no, if you look at the two, well, there is no obvious sign at this point that this recession is going to be much worse than 2001. Just looking at the hard data that we have up to now. Okay, the euro area. So the euro area, as Jose was saying when he was talking about decoupling, the euro area was growing very fast. In fact, the growth was accelerating on average over the past few years. Now, the big change has come in quarter 2 of 2008, and in quarter 2, well, we see a negative number, minus 0.2%. It's no big deal, but it's a sign that something's happening. But if we look at employment, the employment change is equivalent to what we had seen for the US, but now for the euro area, employment change has remained positive for the euro area as a whole. This is not true for all countries, particularly Spain. Today, we had the first piece of news pointing to hard data pointing to the beginning of a serious downturn. Employment declined substantially in absolute value for Q3 in Spain. And these numbers for Q3 will start to be published over the next few days and weeks, and we'll see the extent of the damage. But up to now, the truth is that we cannot see that much. So the question is whether these factors that I mentioned earlier that made it possible for advanced economies to resist a shock as large as the increase in the price of oil and the increase in commodities will also be at work here, and will avoid a very serious downturn. That's obviously something that no one can answer. Now, if we look at more high-frequency numbers or high-frequency data, here all the signs are more negative. Now, if you look at measures of consumer sentiment, business sentiment, or consumer confidence, business sentiment, monthly indexes of purchasing management activities, surveys, bank surveys, in which they are asked if their credit standards are being tightened or not. I mean, all those point to a dramatic worsening of the macro scenario. Okay, especially starting in September of this year. But this won't be reflected most likely until the data for quarter 3 and quarter 4 are published.